Hi and welcome to the Yorkshire Garden School. In this latest video we're going to be looking at sowing biennial seed. Biennial plants are brilliant plants for that early season colour, so at a time when the perennial plants, the ones that live for more than 2 years, are just getting going, they're just starting to put on their growth so that they can flower later in the summer. You often find there's a bit of a gap in the garden, and if you haven't got plants like peonies or roses which start to flower in June, then biennials are brilliant plants for giving you some early season colour. So when we're talking about biennials, the most common things that people like to sow are foxgloves, honesty, hesperis, wallflowers. And what we mean by a biennial is a plant which puts on growth in its first year, and then in its second year it will flower and then it will die. Now, not all wallflowers or foxgloves are true biennials. Some of them will stagger on for a third year. But we generally discard wallflowers, for example, after their second year because they don't perform so well. So we treat them as biennials. Now, if we think about the life cycle of a biennial, if it's flowering in April, May, June time, then it'll also be setting seed around that time. And so now is the time to be sowing biennials for next year so that they can germinate, put on a bit of growth over winter, and then flower for you in the first part of the growing season next year. So no sooner have we started enjoying this season's flowers than we need to start thinking about next year's display. So all we're going to need for this is some compost. As we've said before, ideally peat-free compost, and it will be very clearly labelled as peat-free on the bag if it is peat-free, not so clearly labelled if it's not. I've also got here a little pile of vermiculite, which is a mineral that is very good at retaining moisture. So I tend to sprinkle that on top of very fine seeds so that some of the moisture is held in. Otherwise I find that they dry out quite quickly, so I'll show you how to use that. Finding it a bit tricky to get hold of vermiculite during lockdown, so don't worry if you can't get it, just make sure you don't allow the seeds to dry out, but it just helps if you can get hold of it. And then seed trays. So these particular ones came as a set as part of a heated propagator that I've got, and so I'm going to be using these because I want to start them off, start the seeds off with a little bit of bottom heat. But basically, if you don't have a set that comes with that, then I find these small trays or something similar size quite good for fine seeds, because you tend not to sow that many, and you just don't need a great big space, so it's a bit more efficient for the compost. So what we're sowing today is these wallflowers. These have come from Chiltern Seeds, and as you see there's no picture on the packet. I guess it's cheaper for them not to produce it with the picture, but if you do want to know what it looks like, then their website or their brochure has all the pictures, and if you know the Latin name, then you can be sure you're going to, if you Google it, you can be sure you'll get exactly the plant that you're looking for. So this one is called Erysimum chieri, Sunset Series F1 Hybrid Sunset Apricot. So really the important bits here are the Erysimum chieri Sunset Apricot, and so as the name suggests, it's an apricot coloured wallflower. And I'm thinking of putting this together in the bed with some cream coloured tulips, which I would plant in November. So I need to be careful to choose tulips that come out at the same sort of time as these will. And then the other seeds that we're sowing today are digitalis, otherwise known as foxglove. This is a really, really pretty foxglove, which has a very natural feel to it. It's digitalis lutea, kind of pale creamy yellow, and very good in a woodland type setting. So that's what I'm growing today. So all I'm going to do here is loosely fill these trays until they're fairly full, maybe a tiny bit over full, but you'll see that they'll pack down. So quite casually filling them, and then I'm just going to give them both a bit of a shake to settle that compost, and maybe just gently firm that with my hands. So there we have our trays, and as you can see, I just firmed them down, patted them down a little bit with my hand, but really not pressing down hard at all, because a key ingredient of compost is air. The plants do need to be able to get air to their roots. And then I don't know if you can see inside that envelope there, but the seeds are fairly small. They're not like dust, which sometimes they can be. These are wallflower seeds, but they are small seeds, and I'm just going to take a little pinch of them like that and sprinkle them, trying to sprinkle them sort of singly so that they don't crowd each other when they germinate, and evenly distribute them across the tray. And then I'm going to just put a light dusting of vermiculite over the top. So now that's done, I'm just going to be putting that into a water bath in a minute, meaning I'm going to just sit it in a saucer or a tray of water so that it can soak up water from below, which is usually the best way to do it, because if you water from above, unless you're very, very gentle, you can easily displace that seed that's on the surface. So try to remember to water from below. I've also put together a little label for it, so the key bits of information there are obviously the name and the date, so that I can have a rough idea of how long I've been waiting for it to germinate. It's always useful when you're getting impatient. And then this, as I say, this is part of a kit, and it comes with its own little lid, which is great for keeping in the moisture, and the lid is actually adjustable. You can open it to let some air in, or keep it closed to keep the moisture in. And now we've got our second seed tray with the digitalis. The digitalis seeds, I don't know if you can see well there, but they are actually really, really fine. So you can see that they are not quite as fine as dust, maybe more like very fine sand. You could sow these in two trays this size, and that's what I might do. So I'm going to take a little pinch and just distribute them as evenly as I can on there. There are different ways of doing this. Some people like to use the groove in the palm of their hand. You can shake the seeds in using that little groove. I don't find that I'm so much in control of my movement if I do that, so I just prefer to sprinkle on using my fingertips. And I'm finding that I've probably got enough really in this tray, because if I were to fill it even fuller than this, I would find that it would be very difficult to separate out the little seedlings when they come up. So I'm probably going to sow 2 sowings of that. So I'll put the rest back in the packet for now. And then I will just put the vermiculite on the top. So that's it. And now these seeds are going to be moved to a heated propagator indoors out of direct sunlight until they germinate. And when they've germinated, I'm going to take them off the heat, still keep them out of direct sunlight until they've grown on a little bit, and then I'll move them to a bigger module for growing on. So that's it for this video. Do tune into the next one, where we'll hopefully have some seedlings for you to see me pot on.